Hello everyone, my name is Radek Pospisil and I will give you a brief overview of our project Policy Guided Fulfillment of Murano applications. So there's a number of words in this title, so let's start with cleaning some terminology to give you some overview of what we understand by the policies, by the application, how they should be put together. So our initial motivation is to integrate business policies and application model together to be able to some control deployment of applications in the cloud, and maybe not just only in the cloud. So first term I used was a policy. So policy is something that we can imagine as a definition of intended state that has to be handled and held in your system. So for example, you want to have some concrete usage of flavors or some specific usage of Novas servers, and you want to have some ability to say what's wrong and what's okay. Typically, this business policy is created without the knowledge of application that will be running in your system, and we are going here right now to the second term, the application. You know that the application was not a very common term in OpenStack in last few summits. So right now, as you can see, the Murano is getting momentum. So we are using also a Murano application definition model for definition of application, and we use it as some base implementation of application in policy guided fulfillment. So let's clarify some things. Typically, application model is not depending on policies, and policies are not typically depending on the applications, but can be. But we are not using it in our model, in our project. So let's give you some overview of typical use cases that we want to cover. So first one is that we would like to be able to modify application priorities deployed. So imagine that you've got application without the monitoring, and in your business policy, you want to enhance your application by this. So this is the one use case for it. Another use case is that you want to have a control on applications that will be running in your cloud. So you want to be able to cancel deployment of applications which are not fulfilling your business requirements. And of course, deployment is not the final stage of the application life. The final stage of application is something which we call as a decommissioning, but prior that, there is some long time in runtime phase where the application is running and something gets wrong. So we want to use application also for checking whether the application is behaving correctly, whether it is running correctly, and if it is not necessary to do some, let's say, manual or automatic remediation action. So as you can see on the image, at one given point of times, all these pieces together, like application model, policy, and infrastructure, has to be put together to do the use case to fulfill the, for example, application deployment or remediation or modification of your application. So I give you a few examples of business policies as we want to model. So they can be split to this number of, let's say, categories. Here I've just picked 3 of them, like security policy rules. It means you want to have ability to, let's say that the storage has to be located in a given zone, geographical zone, otherwise the application won't be able to deploy. Or you can say that your application has to be created or composed of certified components, I mean certified applications in Murano. Or you can have the ability to control some, let's say, financial reasons in your business by saying that a given set of users can use only a given flavor, or the deployment of application could be done in nearest zone to save your money. So what we develop in Kilo. In the previous slide, I give you some very high-level overview of our intention. But as you can see, it is not possible to deliver all of them in one release of OpenStack. So in kilo release, we provided pre-deployment policy enforcement. So you will be able to define policies which will control deployment by denying or allowing deployment of application. You will be possible to do runtime policy enforcement. So you will be able to check whether your application is behaving correctly. And the last point, workflow embracement, which could be seen as not coupled together with the policy, but I will explain later, is that you are able to use workflow for deployment for implementation of deployment of your applications. So let's move to some big picture in which you will see how it works. So there's a number of steps, and all these use cases are captured in this diagram. So let's start with saying that you've got the application designer role on the right top, and the system administrator, which is responsible for definition of policies. Both these guys are going to do his job. So application designer is creating application components and publish them to the Murano, which is on the top in the OpenStack cloud middle. System administrator is creating policies, saying what has to be fulfilled in deployment, what has to be checked in runtime, and deploys them to the Congress. So right now we have two necessary pieces deployed in the OpenStack, and the application and the user can come and tries to deploy his environment using application provided by the application designer. At that point, Murano environment is created and it is going to be deployed. But prior to the deployment starts, the pre-deployment policy enforcement check is executed. So generally we are asking Congress whether the Murano environment is following the rules set by the system administrator or not. If everything passes, then the Murano starts his job and deploys application. He could also use the Mistral workflows for the deployment. And once every deployment steps are done, application and user can use application, he can process his data and be happy. But as I said, this is not the end of the application. Application is still running, and we have to be aware of some wrong states. For example, virtual machine can stop, or your Tomcat, which is, for example, part of application, could stop respond, and you have to take some action to remediate this error. But you have to be notified about that. So Congress is gathering data from the Murano, gathering data from the other services in the cloud, and rules which are put into this system can trigger execution of actions to start either manual or automatic remediation. So this is the complete workflow that we implemented. You can see that there are 3 places where our free delivered use cases are employed. So let's go more technically to individual parts. So first, what we have to deliver was Murano Congress integration. They are using different models. Murano is using object model, so we have to convert this object model to the Congress model. Congress model has some, let's say, table-like model, and the mapping is, let's say, obvious. We created some tables holding objects of Murano, properties of Murano objects, typing system, states, and of course the relationships between the objects to be able to traverse through the complete topology of application. Of course, we have to deliver a data source driver for the Murano in Congress, so it is possible to continuously update state of Murano environments in Congress, so we are able to, during the runtime, validate whether your application is correctly running. And of course, the last point is, let's say, initial implementation of action execution based on the, let's say, runtime policy rules. So we are currently able to run Nova client actions. So for example, in our demo, you are able to check that or write a rule that will automatically unpause post a virtual machine. So let's look more detailedly on how the validation is done. So as you can see, we've got two scenarios. One is the deployment one. Here we are using simulation API for that, and in a runtime scenario, we are using the full capability of Congress, so action execution rules and so on, and access to all data gathered from the OpenStack. So workflow part is a very simple one right now. This is the part where taken from the implementation of component. So we are able to use Mistral client in Murano PL to upload a workflow and run it. So let's go for a quick, simple example. So the goal of the example is to show that we are able to say some applications are not allowed in a given project. So let's start with the definition of rules. It could be seen as much complicated, but you can see here that we got some pre-deployment errors table, which is important for the integration, and the set of rules set on the individual projects. So you can see that MySQL is allowed in the demo, and QA project supports just only Postgres. So if someone creates in Murano inconsistent environment, like using Postgres in demo project, then the deployment fails, and you can see that deployment logs in Murano shows you the reason why the deployment failed. So what's the next steps? We want to focus in Liberty release for more advanced runtime remediation. We want to focus on more advanced workflow integration to be able to create components for the Mistral workflows. And of course, we want to deliver more in Congress UI and data sources. So here are the resources that you can use for running the full demo, where all the features will be shown. We've got also the documentation as a part of Murano. And there is a link to all the projects that we are cooperating with, Murano, Congress, and Mistral. And of course, you can contact us via RSC and any other channels. So thank you for listening.